Hey everyone, my name is Daniel. I'm back again with our Monday episode and edition of Founders Live, here with Tony, co-founder of Vessi. Tony, how are you?
Good, Daniel. Thanks for having me on.
Super excited to have you. Super excited to learn. I also just noticed this now. You have some great whiskey behind you. I'm a huge fan of Japanese whiskey. At
Oh
least
yeah,
that's the one I think I recognize. So
this one right here. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good.
yeah. So we'll talk about that at the end. Those are my
Yeah,
fun favorite questions. I have a whole. I don't have. I should put a cabinet behind me. It's all stored in my kitchen up there. But yeah, for those tuning in for the first time, we're always very privileged to have founders like Tony join us to share a bit about their story, and hopefully you guys can come away with some tips and tricks and ideas on how you can build your own businesses. But Tony, would just love to first start by asking, how are you? Where are you calling from today?
yeah, I'm good. Calling from Vancouver. Beautiful weather. If anyone's ever been, Vancouver's in Canada.
Very nice.
Listening from the States, yeah, yeah.
No, I love Vancouver. I used to spend a lot of time in Vancouver. Not a lot of time. I used to have a chance to go out there probably every couple of months with my last company. We did some work with Best Buy out there, and so I would always do this big West Coast trip where I either would start in Vancouver and then go to the States and see all my other clients, or the reverse of I'd start at the bottom and then finish in Vancouver and fly home. So I'm I have it in my list to come out there very, very soon. But would love to start really at the beginning with you of where did you grow up in Vancouver, or where did life start for you, and we can go from there.
Yeah, life started in Vancouver. Slightly different place from when I grew up. A lot more populated now. Yeah, I grew up in Vancouver. Went to school here, and then hopped over to Victoria, which is, believe it or not, the capital. And went to school at a school called University of Victoria. That was
Cool.
That was me. Did a year abroad. Yeah.
Yeah, and you started a number of companies, which is why I'm so excited to dive into all of those. But when you were growing up, was your family entrepreneurial? Like, did you have a bunch of side hustles as a kid, or is that something you kind of discovered later on?
Yeah, I guess kind of entrepreneurial. Yeah, we used to build a lot of things with my cousin. So we would build skateboard ramps, potato guns, potato cannons, build go-karts out of lawnmower machines. So quite innovative. And
you're like a young engineer. That's all not easy stuff to build. Maybe the potato gun. I don't know. I haven't tried to build one, but I feel like a good skateboard ramp, real difficult to do that nicely. Go-karts, also not easy.
Yeah, I mean, it was different. There's not as many computer games back then, and not as digitized. So yeah, building a lot of things growing up. And my dad was an inventor of sorts. So he invented a lot of different interesting products. So one of maybe the notable ones is he invented the first smart gun system. So that's it only allowed the owner of the firearm to have to be able to fire off the gun, and he invented that really because at the time there was a lot of accidental discharges going off, like in family homes and stuff. Kids would pick up their parents' loaded firearm, mostly in the States, and things would get shot. So
wow. That's amazing. Well, props to your dad for creating that, but clearly it rubbed off on you as well, and you and your cousin. Of all the stuff you created, was there anything that you built that you tried to sell as a product to someone else, or was it mostly just building stuff for yourself and that you would just enjoy playing around with?
Yeah, building stuff for myself, having the side hustles growing up, selling some firecrackers, some fireworks, and a bunch of other little gadgets on the side.
Yeah, no, I remember me, the first thing, I think I might have told the story here before, the first thing I ever flipped and sold was my Game Boy on eBay. So I was trying to sell. Well, first, I was playing, I outgrow my Game Boy at this point. I'd beat the Pokemon Blue 100 times. I'm all right, I'm done with this. Let me try to learn how to sell this thing on eBay. And then I took all the money I got from that, and I realized that memory cards were selling really well. So this is the early days of flipping, and I bought a box of junk and then resold that box of well, I bought a box of junk knowing there were memory cards in there, threw out 90% of what I bought, but then kept the memory cards that each sold for like $20 a piece.
Amazing.
So,
Yeah.
but that was really about it. Like, but funny enough, my dad too, he did a bunch. He was not an inventor, but he did a lot of these other little random side hustle businesses. He always will, even today, ping me with like different ideas of what to create, what to launch. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? But when you got into university, was that something that you still continued with, or were you kind of more focused on school at that point, or had your businesses kind of evolved to something a bit more established from just like projects?
Yeah, so the first actual business didn't start until after university. University was more of like just enjoying the experience. Still having like that very like entrepreneurial mindset. Arbitrage opportunities are like everywhere. So some arbitrage stuff like within university, but for the most part, university I think is like a great time to meet and connect with people and just like experience. So I think the biggest factor in like university for me was going on exchange. So I did a year over in Hong Kong, and during that year, like I was able to travel Southeast Asia, just travel all over the place. It's crazy that you could, hop on a flight the same day and like be in another country, a couple hours later, and then just go backpack. So that experience was pretty eye-opening. Being able to see like the world from a different lens, is something I would recommend to everyone.
Was there a formative kind of moment you had once you got when you're on exchange, like a story or something that's like that kind of has stuck with you till now, of like a favorite story you like to tell people, or something that you feel like shaped what you're doing today?
Yeah, I think it's like never going with like status quo. There was I think it's like the experiences that aren't like in travel magazines that are like truly life-changing. There was a small moment just in we're in the Philippines with some friends, and everyone's trying to sell tours for like a little boat trip, and we were poor students at the time, so like, well, we're not gonna do that. So we found some townspeople or village people, and they were just going back to their island from I guess like a fishing run. So they're like, oh yeah, come join us. So we hopped on their boat, and they took us to the island, and we spent the rest of the day there. They were showing us around, climbing trees, and we got some coconuts, like chopped those up, cooked us some food. And that experience was, it's not like a tour or anything, but it gives you a better flavor of how like beautiful like their world is, even without too much technology and all the other things. So
how did that even come about? Like, did you was it hard to convince them, or were they? I'm half Filipino, so one answer can definitely be like, oh, they're just very happy, welcoming people, and they're like, come on our boat.
They're super welcoming people. We were in Cebu, but they were like just super welcoming. We tried to pay them; they wouldn't take any money, but and it's like experience like those that are hard to find. But if you, I guess, like put yourself out there, open up those doors, and a lot can happen.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. It's funny. So I'm looking. We graduated at the same time. I'm a 2012 like business undergrad, and I saw you before you jumped to building a business. You started Accenture, and before I started my first company, I ended up not taking like a full-time role, but I had in my head, I'm like, I was going to be a consultant. That was going to be my career path until I discovered startups as a thing to do. So I'd say it's infinitely less entrepreneurial than you growing up. But I'm curious, at that point in time when you're graduating, what was the conversation in your head as to like, hey, I'm going to go jump to Accenture versus, sounds like you had lots of projects on the go. Do you remember what that decision was like?
Yeah, it wasn't much of a decision. I'm not the most planned out person, so it just kind of fell in my lap, and it was something I applied to. I thought, consulting was an interesting gig, give me like a broad scope of like general understanding.
Mhm.
And yeah, dove into it. But it was never really like a job that I was like really sought after in my
Mhm.
mind. I've always wanted to get into investment banking. The
Mhm.
world of finance is very interesting, and just like understanding the way like businesses function
Yeah.
from a internal like financial standpoint, and just how they operate and grow. I thought was more exciting than consulting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it didn't take you long to eventually start Nanotips, but I guess similar question. We're kind of jumping over that part of your life, but after you're there for just under 2 years, you decide to just, hey, like I'm just going to make a jump. I'm going to go start this company. I had a chance to watch your pitch on Dragon's Den, but I know there's more to that than what you see on TV. How did that idea come to be the idea that you decided to quit your full-time job to do?
Nanotips.
Yeah.
That was
I feel like there's lots of stories here, so I'm excited.
yeah, Nanotips was really like a very typical like problem solution type of business. So I bought a motorcycle back in that summer, and one of the main problems with my motorcycle gloves, which were pretty expensive, was they didn't interact with my phone.
Yeah.
And I had like this like phone mount for GPS on my motorcycle, and I could never like get to them. So just one night I was thinking like how do I make it work with my glove? I was trying to figure out like what kind of touchscreen solutions exist, and surprisingly nothing existed.
It's crazy.
There were some like magic gloves, like those knit ones that were
Hmm.
they like had some like silver weaving at them, so it kind of
I've bought
worked.
them
But
from Uniqlo for like the
oh
winter
yeah,
gloves and stuff like that. Yeah.
there's tons now, right? There's tons of touchscreen gloves now, but at the time, like very specific industries didn't have touchscreen gloves, and I found
Hmm.
the same problem with my motorcycle gloves, and then with my ski and snowboard gloves as well.
Yeah.
So really just try to figure out like what is a solution that I could, I guess, retrofit these expensive gloves and make them work with my touchscreen or
Yeah.
my Apple Watch or tablets and so on. So started spending a lot of time doing that. Did some like patent research, did like reverse engineered how like capacitive touchscreen devices worked, and then figured out the right chemical mixture that was
Perfect.
flexible and adhesive enough to go onto these gloves. And
Yeah.
yeah, started doing that for a bit while working at Accenture. And then again, going back to like how I'm like slightly unplanned, it just, when we launched our Kickstarter, it just ended up being like, oh, well, since this is taking off, I might as well do this and spend more time trying to get it into like retail stores. So
Yeah. Oh, there's so much to unpack there, honestly. So, um, you're not like a chemist, and nowhere in, at least from the traditional education, would anyone believe like, yeah, this guy can definitely come up with like the chemical formula for this thing. But clearly, you did it. And so, like, how did you even go about it? Like, so you've read about it, like you reverse engineered it. You have here's the let's break it down. How did you get to the point of like knowing your first version of what to mix together, and how did you find the ingredients to go actually mix that together?
yeah, yeah. I guess it all starts with like a question, right? Like
Yeah.
I think if you have the right questions, the answers are out there, whether it's like on the internet where you could get anything you need if you're asking the right questions, or finding the right people. So I guess my first question there was like how do touchscreen devices work,
Yeah.
right? And you kind of go down that rabbit
It's
hole.
very first principles, right?
Very first principles, yeah. So like how does it work? And then a little interesting resource is like Google Patents. Google Patents has a nice search engine of like all the patents that really exist, and type in the right keywords, and a bunch of patents come out. And what's great about like patent research is that when someone goes out and files a patent, they have things already broken down into like the specific elements.
Mm-hmm.
How a capacitive touchscreen device works, they'll list out like these are the things that will interact with these capacitive touch devices.
Oh,
Uh,
very cool.
what the one thing like yeah, it's like understanding like how it works can lead you to kind of your next question, which is
Yeah.
like what materials can interact or like draw enough capacitance from the
Mm.
screen to make it work. And like how capacitive touchscreen devices work, like they have it's capacitively charged on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Which means like, let's call it like there's some like electricity there, right? And there's X and Y coordinates on your screen. And when your finger touches it, it draws the electricity out, and the
Interesting.
sensors recognizes where like the X and Z, XY coordinates happened, and it'll signal like that's a touch, right?
Got it.
So like understanding that, then just figuring out like, well, what is has enough like draw so you
Mm-hmm.
can signal from that device. And list of like elements came up
Yeah.
that I've like never heard about, and you Google that. That's your next question. It's like, well, like how do I get carbon? How do I make it like stick to my glove? How do I make it adhesive enough, like and abrasion resistant enough to do XYZ? And
Yeah.
eventually, some companies will come up, companies that you would have like never thought to like go in contact, and pick up the phone and you call them, and they're engineers and they're scientists, because they're not salespeople. Will just unload information on you. like
I love it.
Yeah. So just make sure you don't talk to the salespeople, because they'll just give you a bunch of fluff. But if you talk to like the engineers, like,
Yeah.
oh, like you could do it in this way, and it's like, oh, we have this like cool adhesive, we can mix it together, so on and so forth. But
That's crazy.
and then it's trial and error.
So for the first formula, was it just one company that supplied it to you, or did you have to like cobble it together in your garage to mix it together?
Yeah, I cobbled it together. They weren't able to make the formula, so I found a company over in Boston who could provide like one compound. So it was like it was like a carbon nanotubed resin, but it was too thick. So I had to figure out how to thin it out, reduce it, but remain like give it like high enough capacitance still,
Yeah.
and give it like abrasion resistance. So it ended up being like 3 different mixtures that I had to mix. I was mixing it in my garage, and in a specific percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I used to sell my last company. We sold into the like CPG industry, and I went to this conference that P&G hosted, and they were telling me the engineering that goes into like making Tide Pods. It's the most insane thing. And so to come up with like a properly distributed product in your garage is like not easy. You must have gone through like hundreds of gloves and like hopefully not too many broken screens.
So many gloves. Yeah, lots of gloves, lots of different formulas, lots of bottles, and yeah, I guess really like taking that first principles thinking and questioning like how to do the next thing and finding the answers is probably the most important way to grow, because you can expand your level of consciousness or level of like thinking like pretty rapidly.
So you get to the point where it's different than some other businesses where, I mean, I'd say no, like you really have to spend time on product development, but once you have a formula that you're like relatively confident in, do you remember like what was the first kind of step you did to commercialize it? Was that in parallel you were trying to sell the idea? I mean, you had your Kickstarter that had launched, but when did the Kickstarter come into play?
Yeah, we were making some samples in my garage, and we use Michaela, my co-founder, in Vessi right now. So we've been running businesses for a while.
Amazing.
And yeah, we were bottling them. We were selling them to like motorcycle stores, and Kickstarter popped up. It's like, oh, like Kickstarter is launching in Canada. I think it was like end of 2013. And it's like, oh, this was a very interesting platform. Give it a shot, and launch on Kickstarter. And I mean, that was the most money I've seen come in like ever. I remember like, I think we raised like $72,000 or something. And at the time, like the bigger campaigns on Kickstarter were like 100K. So it was great. Got a lot of press, got a lot of inbound inquiries,
Yeah.
and yeah, things just started opening up. It's like we immediately got like a person that wanted to buy us out. They were in the construction space, and they want to roll out this type of product to all of their construction gloves.
Oh, wow.
And then we had like inquiries for like prosthetic companies and military, lots of military applications for like
Wow.
the Air Force.
This is the most useful Kickstarter ever. Not only did you kickstart like consumer sales, but this
It
is
was
like your B2B lead gen was just like, there you go.
yeah. Kickstarter, honestly, crowdfunding is such a great way to launch any direct to consumer type of product. Market validation, getting your initial community, and then refining the product is so important. You know, like Peloton was launched on Kickstarter.
I love the world of fitness, and I didn't know they were launched on Kickstarter. That's crazy.
Yeah, Peloton was launched on Kickstarter. Ring launched through crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Your doorbell. Some shoe companies like Vessi launched through crowdfunding. What else? Pebble Watch started the smartwatch.
Yeah. I know that story. That was very iconic.
Oculus, yeah, tons. Like the list goes on. So it's a great platform to launch an idea, get some traction.
Like, well, we actually built a funding platform for not Kickstarter but Indiegogo. That's a new thing that we've rolled out now. So, as you raise money through your Indiegogo kind of Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign, you can actually like draw money from that account before it's released to you to reinvest into marketing of the actual campaign. So
that's great.
Yeah, and we're trying to encourage more founders to use it, not just from like pre-sales. I don't have a company to launch a company, but why don't you launch more products as like a way, like another retail channel, essentially. Do your drops on, whether it's Indiegogo, which we support, or Kickstarter or wherever, and then drive them back to your store where you saw the things, right?
Yeah, it's I think every like founder with like a proper product should launch through one of these crowdfunding platforms. I think it just makes the most sense.
And so you've sounds like you've done it obviously a couple of times, and you think a lot about it. When you think about Nanotips back then, and then Vessi later on, if I would maybe, I don't know how the best way to word this. Let's say I was like asking you like build a course on how to run a good crowdfunding campaign. What would you be like your top 3 topics you think that you would cover?
Market positioning, incredibly important. Pricing, and just understanding like your cost of goods. Market positioning, and then like there's the nuances that make these crowdfunding campaigns work. And funny enough, like I had so many requests to like actually make a course that I started to like put together like the playbook that we actually had before, and trying to document a bit better. So
that's cool. Well, I mean, if you can give us a little preview of what's in there, let's talk about market positioning. So, Nanotips may not be as good of an example because it was so long ago relative to now. So maybe you can use this as an opportunity to jump to Vessi for a moment. But when you were getting Vessi off the ground and building the crowdfunding campaign, how did you think through the market positioning of your launch?
Yeah, it's like I think you have to think in the lines of like, what does this product like do for you, right? So like Daniel, like why would you care about like owning a product like Vessi or Nanotips? So the best way to convey that really is through lifestyle and emotion. So if you pair lifestyle and emotion with like utility, then it connects pretty quickly. So for Vessi, for example, it was like look like this, feel like this, and do it in this weather or any weather.
I mean, and Vessi was like insanely successful. I think I was reading you raised $1.2 million on your Kickstarter.
1.2 million nowadays. Like that's I guess pretty standard now. Well, I guess not standard.
Clear million, no problem.
But for crowdfunding campaigns, like the level of success and level of like product rollouts there are becoming like stronger and stronger. So
Yeah.
a million, don't get me wrong, is still very difficult to achieve, but proper like product fit, and just conveying the message and the value prop to your core audience is so important. Also, like understanding who your audience is.
Yeah. Well, it's like I wonder if this will work. We're going to try something fun here. I was able to pull up this on my other screen because I think it would be really cool if you don't mind. We just do a little. Hopefully, you can see that here. This is I was able to pull up your Kickstarter here, and the reason I wanted to pull it up was just asking some questions here. So for people like look at the video, it's a 4-minute video, but as I click through it, it's like a lot of lifestyle of how to use the product, and then towards the end, you start talking about how it was created, and you're showing the factory and how it's built and all that. Do you mind speaking to you a little bit about like the storyboard behind it, or like what were the key points you're trying to hit? I'm going to start running this from the beginning as we talk through it.
Yeah, it's like I think if you try and like storyboard, it's like what are your main objections and what are your main features that you need to highlight, and really it's like you just kind of start cross stitching them. It's like, and you figure out like in your video, because it's kind of modular in a sense, like which elements are, I guess, the most impactful versus not, and you just kind of start moving them throughout the video here. And you start with so.
That's very cool. I'm sure everyone that I'll put the link in the comments after. How do I go back to here? I mean, as you can tell, I'm really enjoying StreamYard as a tool. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. But we kind of jumped ahead to the Vessi like on Kickstarter. And we didn't finish the story on Nanotips. So obviously you build Nanotips, you get on Dragon's Den. So I know a lot of people, ascribe that to being a fun experience. This is before Michelle was on Dragon's Den. So you're an OG to the show. Where does the business kind of end? You're not running Nanotips today. What was the conclusion like of that business, and then how did that lead eventually into Vessi, which in some ways is another chemistry experiment of its own?
Yeah, Nanotips was interesting. I would consider that like a kind of an MBA. So from like making in our garage, we like learned about contract manufacturing. So we started getting other people to make it, and we were able to like scale up production. We didn't go the e-commerce route at the beginning there. Like we had like e-commerce sales happening, but the main revenue driver was for that one like distribution. So we were able to get into like a lot of outlets across the USA through like our distributor. So we were showing up at like a lot of events and conferences and stuff. And eventually the market moved into a space where it was there's a lot more touchscreen gloves starting to emerge. Even in like motorcycle industries, we started noticing them pop up. This was about 2 years in. And yeah, our market got like smaller and smaller and smaller. And yeah, it just kind of it kept on shrinking. We didn't capitalize on the opportunity in terms of like a sale or anything when we had the chance. So it slowly fizzled out as like the other businesses started picking up.
Got it. So. And was it Vessi, or because there's a business in between that I wasn't able to read as much about, but I think it was called Arcadia.
Yeah, it was. So we launched like other Kickstarter products for Nanotips, and then we launched some other products. Launched a company called Arcadia, which was another like problem solution for ourselves, and we were backpacking a lot and traveling a lot at the time, and that product was like a packable waterproof bag that would like fit in your pocket. So really good for traveling and day hikes and stuff. And really just got good at launching crowdfunding campaigns. That product specifically was, I think we launched Arcadia with about a little over $5,000, and we're able to turn it into like a multi-7-figure company just off of a crowdfunding campaign. So
yeah. That's amazing. I mean, because I did an interview last week or 2 weeks ago with Moise Ali, who started Native,
Oh yeah.
and he's like, yeah, I started Native with like I think $1,200. That was his initial seed capital. So it doesn't take a lot to start a business.
No, it
For
doesn't.
that
Yeah.
for that $5,000 initial investment, like what was that specifically? What did you have to spend money on to get it off the ground?
Yeah, getting a video going, getting like the right prototypes and samples. You need your sample to be about like 80% to where it needs to be, and then you can like build all the assets around it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. Yeah, some samples, marketing content.
yeah,
Yeah, get that
and
going.
for the waterproof bag, was that something that you had to do R&D on, or is it something that you found and just kind of made your own? What was the process of coming up with that?
Yeah, so that one was something that already existed. There was materials on the market called like Cordura. So you could get like waterproof Cordura, which is like a highly durable type of nylon, like highly durable, really thin, and they were also able to make it waterproof. And they were selling dry bags out of this Cordura material before. So it's really just like
yeah, when you're
for
like
those.
kayaking or on a boat and stuff
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, they're just dry bags. We found our partner over in Asia, and they were making these. They were making dry bags, and we decided like we'll put some straps on it. We'll put a little. We'll turn it into a bag essentially.
Yeah.
Throw some pockets in it, and that was kind of like the iteration process before we got that product launched.
And so that's your kind of step into the world of waterproof items. What's the leap to like, you know what, like let's put this on. I was trying to show earlier, I have to put these in the wash, so I apologize there, but you can tell they're used very often. These are my Vessis. These are waterproof sneakers. So how do you, I don't know if it's made out of Cordura, but walk me through that jump of like running this outdoor product company and then jumping to the seeds of the Vessi idea.
Yeah, so Vessi wasn't started with like, I guess, our idea. So it was Mikhail and myself who started like Arcadia, and we helped launch a few other companies like for friends. And one of our friends was Andy, who is our third co-founder here, and he had this. Andy is the shoe dog, right? So Andy had been working with in shoe factories for a while. He absolutely loves shoes, and during his time like working in those factories, he was working with like Skechers and maybe I wouldn't drop names, but he's working with a lot of big shoe companies. And the more popular innovation that was emerging was knit back around like 2016. So remember like the Nike Roshis that came out.
Oh, I was a huge Roshi consumer. Yeah. I've burned through many of those pairs.
Super lightweight, comfortable, easy like on the environment to produce because it doesn't have as much material waste. So I pause there, but like if you're not familiar with like the shoe industry, typically how shoes are made, it's like you have almost like a square piece of fabric and a cookie cutter that's like shaped like the upper of your shoe, and it gets like printed on, and 30 to 40% of the material gets tossed away. So that's not very efficient, right?
Yeah.
The amount of water that goes into that, just material waste in general, is a lot. I think the number of like, anyways, you could almost like double the amount of shoes that you could make with just the excess material.
That's crazy.
So knit was getting really popular around like 2016, and Andy was the one who noticed like, well, because he also lives in Vancouver, is like, well, you can't exactly wear knit when it's raining, right? And for a little over half the year, it rains in Vancouver. Even when you're traveling, it's raining in these other places. Instead, like knit actually absorbs the water. It feels like it finds its way and it sucks up the water into your shoe. So he tried to figure out how to make kind of the same properties, or like comfort, breathability, easy on the environment, but at the same time, like add like a utility function. So make it all weather. So make it good for the winter, make it good for the summer, and like rain essentially. So he worked with his partners over there, and we created this material called Dymatex, which is a really stretch. If you pull up your shoe,
Yeah.
and you just kind of stretch the collar.
Yeah, I can show you
like
here.
from like the front.
Oh, the front. Oh, here, yeah. With all my
Yeah.
laces, yeah. Here. Yeah, hopefully you can see it in the camera. Yeah, you can stretch it out. There we
So
go.
the stretchiness factor just didn't exist in waterproof. So how do you make something like that? And he was able to figure out that solution. And Michaela and I at the time, we were just helping friends like launch campaigns and launch companies through our like marketing agency. And Andy wanted some help, right? Andy was like, well, we got this great idea. There's this like prototype of a shoe that kind of exists. And at that point, like we jumped in and we partnered up with them and figured out how to position it, market it, like throw it up on the crowdfunding platform and scale the company. So
yeah. What made you take on this project as like, hey, we're not just gonna have it as, I mean, they're your friends, but like not just another client, that you'd service that way, but it's like, hey, like we're actually going to be, more involved as operators in the business.
Oh, it was just an incredible product. Yeah, it just made so much sense. Like the first time he showed me the prototype, my mind was blown. It's like, I hated wearing boots. I would never wear boots in Vancouver. I would like accept the fact that my socks would get really wet or my toes would get like frozen. And when he brought this out, I remember the first time he showed it, he was like, yeah, I just took these snowshoeing. Like he took these like sneakers snowshoeing.
That's crazy.
And, so, we thought there was like a better opportunity and we could like basically use Vessi as a vehicle to drive more and more change. It fit with kind of more our objectives rather than just making money, but like doing a bit of good in society. And we've been able to like weave that into Vessi with kind of like the community fund aspects that we do. So we really see Vessi as like, it's a great product. There's a great innovation curve that's coming through our pipeline. But it's really the vehicle to, drive and inspire happier communities. So we have like portion of like our revenue that actually comes through and we're able to, give back to the community. So even like last year in 2020, we donated like thousands of shoes to like frontline workers. We've given over like $1 million to like community fund aspects and just like amazing. More like micro projects and helping like almost like entrepreneurs that need a little bit of a kickstart to push forward and they can tap into our research and stuff. So we think that's really powerful.
That's really cool. I mean, I love the way you also integrate it into checkout, because I remember it's like when at kind of the start of the pandemic, I remember there's like options of like, depending, I could buy the same shoe at different price points that would, determine how much I'm giving to the community. Which is, I've never seen any other brand kind of do it that embedded at checkout to know exactly what I'm putting my money towards.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? Like being able to, support the community that you live in will in turn, kind of cliche, but like you can create like ripple effects of karma, of goodwill. So one of the stories like of last year was a woman named Steffi. She was able to start a grocery delivery network over in New York. And that was specifically for like the elderly, the immunocompromised, in where their volunteer network would go out and buy the groceries and then drop it off to these immunocompromised homes. And the fund would actually reimburse them, the volunteers, for the groceries that they would pick up.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they're buying it out of pocket otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And, at the time, fund didn't exist and, we were able to put in a bit of money in there a few thousand, and has since turned that into like 6 figures plus
Wow.
in grocery deliveries. Volunteer networks, right? So
That's insane.
it's like the little bit of like money that we can donate can go a long way if sometimes it isn't just given to like a charitable organization. So we think like our dollar goes further within the people in
Yeah.
our community. So if you have ideas, like feed them into us, and we'll see how we can help fund it. There's another project that came in. It was, I think he's 17 years old, but he builds homes out of plastic bottles or just recycled bottles for the homeless.
Wow.
So like those projects will never find its way into like true funding or true, I guess like part of these like donation cycles, but that like small impact can go a long way. So we think like that type of ripple effect is actually stronger than just putting some money into like a organization. Yeah.
Well, you never know. I mean, like that's a legitimate, like if you actually, through the little money that you give to seed the idea, that could be the starting point for like, a future chemicals business or whatever. Like if you take that to its nth degree, if you can figure out how to build homes out of plastic bottles, that is, inherent massive value you're creating socially and economically. And yeah, you're right. These, it sounds like you're backing, even though there are nonprofits or charitable type initiatives, they are backing like the entrepreneurial folks behind it who are like creating and trying to build some net new community or product or service than an existing kind of charity that,
no, exactly. Yeah. They range, right? Like, there's a lot of projects that people were like printing 3D masks because they had 3D printers.
Yeah.
To people giving car rides or like delivering art or like painting murals in hospitals. So
very cool.
They don't need like I guess the way that we look at projects to fund, it's not if it will have a return on investment, like a capital return on investment, but like more of a return on I guess happiness. Like does it increase the greater good of the community and society?
You return on happiness.
Return on happiness, yeah.
If someone had a project, where would they? What's the easiest way to send you ideas?
So you can send it to like founders@vessi.com, or we have a community page, and you can go in there and just submit your idea, and we have someone that's regularly going through and
that's amazing.
Going through those.
Well, you're combining a lot of the elements. I've had this privilege of being introduced so many different folks. The funny thing that just happened because of scheduling back to back tomorrow, like 6 a.m. so 3 a.m. your time, but they're based in Netherlands. We just launched their founder of a company called Lab Fresh, and they do kind of a waterproof shirt. So it's like if I spill kind of liquid here, it just kind of dribbles down. But when you say community and we're talking about like a great product, there's like, you're kind of stitching together this story I've seen from all the successful business I've met. There's some combination of I have a great product and I have some way to engage my community in some shape or form. Like we interviewed the founder. They were about to launch in Vancouver at some point, the founder of Berries. And that before the pandemic, but they're still actually doing quite well. And they're rumored, this is the public rumor, of almost $1 billion valuation for a brick and mortar fitness company. No paid acquisition, no paid advertising, purely off the backs of referrals, basically like community building. And that's it. They like run this exclusive club and whatnot. And this is a different way that you're doing it that has an amazing social return that, there's probably no way to track the impact you're going to have on the world by doing these things so that it's only net positive. I can't see any other outcome.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's the hope, right? Berries. Yeah, I think Berries I think they opened in Vancouver.
Finally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it was a stop start because of COVID. As we're wrapping up here on time, one idea that we haven't talked about, or one question we haven't talked about throughout all your businesses is, even though it sounds like the second business was very cheap to start at the $5,000 to test, the Nanotips sounded like something you were doing off the side of your desk when you're at Accenture. and it's probably different for Vessi, but how did you fund all these ideas? Was it purely off of like savings and then reinvesting profits and sales, or did you ever raise money or get external funding?
Yeah, we never raised money to start off any of those businesses. We used crowdfunding. So crowdfunding was able to, front load a lot of the capital requirements that it would actually take to kick the project off. So that happened with like Nanotips and kind of the subsequent products and the companies that we launched. And you find like quick product market fit within that cycle through crowdfunding platforms, right? So never had to like raise any funds externally, but we have gone through like Clearbank, or I guess Clearco now. As the business starts to expand quicker than your cash flow can, because you have to go out and buy inventory and you have to invest in marketing, that's when like capital can be tricky. So yeah, we worked with the Clearco, I think with Vessi, I think it must have been 2019 now. 2019, like there was just a lot of marketing spend that we had to put down on for Q4, and we were unbankable because we were too new. We were about a year and a half in our company, so 2018, and then about a year in market with our product, and banks wouldn't give us like traditional financing, so like Clearbank like stepped in, and we were able to like ramp up our spend.
It still baffles me, but I guess that's why we exist for those kinds of scenarios. But for a company like yourself to be unbankable is like insane to me. So I'm glad, I'm very proud to say you're part of our portfolio, and we were able to help you along the way.
Thanks to you guys, we were able to like hit our revenue targets, and made it worth it for sure.
Well, it's amazing. Well, thank you. I mean, that's, I think, originally how I officially started working with the team. At probably just around the time, depending on what point in the year you took initial funding. I sold my last company end of 2019, but started kind of working with the team in kind of the end of that year. But I've been friends with Michelle and Andrew and the team and everyone for a couple years before that. And I'm pretty sure that's how I heard about Vessi, was through this community. So hopefully we're also helping drive some sales.
Absolutely.
Of the product too. Well, I think I'd love to just understand for you first. Let's start on Vessi, and then we can kind of switch to personal. With the business today, you don't have to talk about any kind of proprietary stuff you have in the pipe, but where you decided to take Vessi, kind of on a high level from a product perspective, markets perspective, like what's the next 12 to 24 months look like for the business?
A lot of new products coming out. So the product is getting more and more refined, just really listening to our community, our customers, and trying to figure out like what the next product should be, silhouettes, colors, styles. So look out for like more shoe products. We're launching some like smaller shoes in the near future.
Very cool. It's a lot of SKUs to manage.
a lot of SKUs, and we're growing the team a lot. Just looking for great people to come work at Vessi, like people who can think like owners, and it's a startup. So we have a lot of innovation that's happening. So I think that's probably what I'm most excited about. And then on like the outward facing side, in 2019, we had a lot of success running stores, like retail stores, and how we set them up was like it was much more of like a experience than an actual store. So people would come into our stores, and they would get the opportunity to try on the shoes and walk through water. So we had like water walkways set up throughout the store. So
you know what, I'm really good friends. There's a woman named Karina who's a trainer here at Barry's, and I remember seeing her doing this. I think at the I don't remember what the place was called in Toronto, but I remember seeing the videos of them, like you did a very good influencer campaign. All the fitness influencers are at your little pop-up, putting their feet into the little pool of water.
Yeah. And I think that's the most interesting thing that we could do, like on the retail side. It's like, how do we bring that experience so it's more physical, like in-person experience. So many different ways to do that beyond just retail, and that part's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So is the plan to do more pop-ups, or would you do like a flagship store, or what's the, where are you thinking right now?
Pop-ups and flagship are probably in the works sometime in the near future. Just like, it's different. It's a different experience when you can try on the shoes like in person, and actually like walk through water. So we want to make sure that our community is getting that full experience. So
I think I guess the only way to show, I mean, you can show in videos and stuff, but this is like truly believable of like, oh wow, like this stuff actually does what the videos show. And as you're thinking about scaling the business internationally, you're in a couple of, like when you look at least the drop down on the site, you're in a couple of countries already. What's the thought process about taking this outside of the core? I assume Canada and the US are your core markets. Australia, I suspect, is, out of all the e-com companies I know, it's normally Canada, US, Australia is the order of what they go into.
Right.
But how are you thinking about international markets, international expansion?
Definitely a lot of like inbound requests, like for us to do so. So what we're focused on right now is like making sure we have enough product for at least our core customers.
Yeah.
We have a history of selling out of product too quickly.
Your product's too hot, man.
Yeah, it's been a challenge. Like 2019 it happened for like half the year, and then 2020 it happened for half the year, and then beginning of this year it happened as well. So that's the main focus. And once we can get enough product for like at least North America, then we're gonna make sure like that the global expansion will move forward. And part of that is like, how can we make the best customer experience for our customers over in Europe that are looking to get into the product? So that just means like great experience on the shipping side, on the return side. Are there like physical like experience locations, customer service, and so on?
Yeah.
So that's cool. That part needs to be dialed in. It's much more to do with like operational excellence than
and that's really the brand. That's not really, that's the only part of the brand. That's like a key component of the brand. It's not just how it looks and how it feels and what the product does, but it's like, what's my experience in actually like acquiring the product that I've paid money for, and then getting support on it if it shows up late, if there's an issue with it or whatever. And that's a lot of what, at least I find brands that don't have arguably a strong brand, they haven't figured out, they don't recognize that it's the end-to-end experience from every touch point, every communication, every message. You have to figure it all out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that's always improving. So if you've had an experience or like have any suggestions, like definitely hit us up, like founders@vessi.com. Just goes directly to us. So
that's great. Well, the person I'm talking to tomorrow morning, I will introduce both of you. I'll mention this interview tomorrow because he's kind of set up stores in Netherlands. Similar, I could see you guys doing a collab for sure, because he does everything top up, and then you do the shoes, right? And similar kind of value prop, and he's in the kind of same mode of trying to figure out how to, scale the business from a European perspective. So, anyways, you don't have to tune in at 3 a.m., but I think you guys would love to chat. Would have a great time chatting.
I think he launched on Kickstarter as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
There you go. It's a small world.
Small world, yeah.
I promised we'd finish up before the hour. So to normally ask what people are excited about next personally, but and maybe I'm presupposing here only because you have the whiskey in the background, but do you have a favorite brand or kind of whiskey that eventually when I travel up to Vancouver, we can share a glass of?
Yeah, I like really peaty, like smoky, like like I'm consuming a campfire almost.
Yeah. Oh my God.
There was one. It was a blend that I had. I think it was called Campfire, but it's a small batch. Yeah.
Have you ever had Ardbeg before?
Sorry, how do you spell that
It's
one?
spelled Ardbeg, Ardbeg.
No, I haven't. So
Oh
I'll
my
have
God.
to.
So I have the same taste. So it's funny. I like Japanese whiskey, but like on one end of the spectrum, there's a Hibiki, just actually the standard stuff you get. I've tried a bunch. That one I really, really like. It's very floral. But I immediately jumped to the other end of exactly your taste. So I really like Lagavulin 16.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then the one that I think you'll love, and that's why I wish you were in Toronto, but I'll figure out how to find this bottle for you. It's called the Ardbeg, I think, Corvekian. So it's overproof or cask proof. So it's like 56 or 57%, I'm pretty sure. And because it's overproof, Ardbeg in general is a very peaty brand. It is like literally fire when you drink it, but it's exceptional. So I wonder if I'm going to see if I can find it in BC, but I bought mine through duty free in the States and brought it across. It's hard to find normally, but Ardbeg in general is a really, really good peaty brand. But you want to go, that one is another one called Dark Cove, also very
Dark
peaty.
Cove.
Yeah, that one's like 40%. But next, we'll do. I'll find some other people that enjoy whiskey. We'll do like a live whiskey tasting. We'll find someone who runs a whiskey company.
I'm into that. Yeah, I'm into that.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, cool. Tony, thank you for taking the time to chat. I didn't expect to learn so much about the engineering and chemistry behind all the stuff you've done, and I absolutely loved it. And again, people who are watching, Vessi is an amazing company. We're proud to be supporters of the business, investors behind the business through Clearco. So, if you're looking to join an amazing company, reach out to, is it founders, plural, founders at Vessi?
Founders at Vessi.com.
Yeah. Founders at Vessi.com. If you have, social ideas you want to get funded, if you have ideas on international expansion, if you're looking to join a great company, Vessi's the place to go. So Tony, thanks so much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Daniel.
Awesome.
We'll meet up soon. We'll have some whiskey.
Oh, I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait. All right. Have a good day. See you later, everyone.
See you later.